Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Spar&Brawl. Hope you're having a decent day. So we're back with another episode of The Progressive World, and I'm joined by my co-host Sam. So contrary to last week, this week's episode is going to be rather short, but we just uploaded a video that's called The Greater Middle East, where we talk about pretty much Afghanistan and also give some news on Iran. So a lot of the things that we included in last week's Progressive World, especially Afghanistan, we talked about it there. So please go check that out if you're interested. But if not, in today's Progressive World episode, it's going to be relatively short. First, we're going to talk about the videos that Briahna Joy Gray and Jimmy Dore had with Chris Hedges and Richard Wolff, just a few of our takes, including Sam's. And then after that, I found out through the Vanguard about the amazing Atheist, and I just found that his arguments and his attack of Kyle Kulinski was absolutely just hilarious and also enlightening in a way. I'll say how. And then we're gonna have a little. I've sent to Sam this a Reddit thread about climate change and people not wanting to have kids because of. And then we're gonna finish with some progressive tweets, which include a few from Anna really that I found to be funny, and also give us a chance against Sam's will to just talk about Hassan Piker and him getting a house and some of the reactions to it, which I have found to be quite ridiculous. But okay, Sam, if you're doing good and you're ready to go, do you want to start us off with Briahna Joy Gray, Chris Hedges, Jimmy Dore, Richard Wolff, and all that?
Sure. Well, I thought you're gonna start us
No, I thought
off
you
on
said
that.
you're gonna lead this.
All right.
We
No,
just
no, no.
agreed on this.
No, I meant as in like, okay. No, they had a debate, and
Well, yeah.
to be honest, there was like there's some channels report. Like it wasn't actually that. I didn't find it, to be honest, as good as their usual stuff because, frankly, I found Richard Wolff and Chris just were repeating what they've always said. And Briahna Greyjoy, I thought, was trying to ask them some questions about specific issues right now. And they just, I mean, and fair enough, like the old answers were good. I mean, it was just a repeat of their kind of lectures in a way. So I didn't find them that interesting or anything. There was the Jimmy Dore Chris Hedges interview, and in that Chris Hedges again repeated the same things, uh, and to be honest, I found there was a bit of problem, like the way they put some things. I think Chris Hedges puts things, and Jimmy Dore puts things. I find problematic in that. Uh, I mean, Chris Hedges is a bit more fair. For example, there is a place where they ask him why they are not like us. Jimmy Dore asks why they're sellouts, why they don't stand up to the establishment and all that. And then Chris Hedges says to Briahna Greyjoy, for example, he says because rarely they have the backbone that, for example, Dennis Kucinich has,
Yeah.
or Ralph Nader has, or stuff. He does all mention that although they don't have the same economic power as the Freedom Caucus, for example, had, the radical wing of the Republicans. And I think that it's a bit of a, like, this whole backbone and good, these are good people, those are bad people, they're strong, they're weak. I don't know. I just think it's just that the money thing. It's the money thing and the power thing. Because I don't think people really understand what's at the stake for those people. Like for the people who are involved in politics, millions of dollars and them going to jail for corruption and for insider trading and for their names going into history books, their legacies becoming known as basically corrupt pieces of shit. Like if Nancy Pelosi allows a complete reform of the, let's say, uh, Congress, in terms that, her husband, I think, is one of the people who, her husband is a millionaire who benefited from the stock market. These people, like, millions of dollars are at stake, and those people would use those millions of dollars and would use the connections they have to destroy people. I mean, Ralph Nader is a joke now. Ralph Nader is a joke. I mean, we might like him. We might think his views were good or nice, but they made him a joke. They made him a clown. They made him somebody who, if you mention at a dinner party, people go, "Oh, he's a bit of a cuckoo person," and that was nothing. They will kill your family and dissolve them in acid in front of you, and then blame it on you. It's they don't give a shit. These are the people who are like just. I mean, I don't understand.
So
like,
you're saying,
what do you think?
if AOC or Bernie had like a more of a backbone or had a backbone, they would get absolutely destroyed by the establishment in such a way that it's not that they would just like lose. For instance, like AOC wouldn't just lose maybe her position in Congress, but still remain relevant and make a comeback. You're saying she would be destroyed in such a way that she would become like Ralph Nader in a way. Who Ralph Nader now? I mean, he was someone.
I don't think AOC ever wanted to have change anything. I think she was completely. It was obvious from beginning that she was very much like Obama. It was like they're playing it. Like it, you could definitely see the act. But Bernie Sanders, yeah, I think definitely. Like what we mentioned in our Afghanistan video, we mentioned that except Joe Biden, we don't think anybody could do that. And Bernie Sanders, obviously, we think has more progressive foreign policy than Biden. Obviously, he would be more against Afghanistan war than Biden. But I mean, there is a James Adomian. I think he does the best, by the way, Bernie Sanders impression. And one of his bits was that, as soon as I get elected, within the 4 days, there would be a coup d'etat because none of my policies would be acceptable to the Pentagon. I mean, there is a truth to that. There is genuinely truth to that, and I mean, I am exaggerating with the whole, killing your family, but that is the end of it, though. They will first try to destroy your credibility. If they can't do that, they will try to put you in jail and take away everything you have, like Julian Assange. And if they can't do that, they kill you. I mean, just go read about the San Francisco reporter who exposed the Iran-Contra affair. Or, I mean, we are talking about people who are basically, for the last 100 years, have been running an empire through drug trafficking, through covert operations, through killing and murders, and they all have loads of shit on each other, and everybody owes everybody. And what, you want AOC and Ilhan Omar to not sell out to these people? Like, I mean, again, I think the expectation from human spirit is just too much. Human spirit is not that fucking. If you're not a bunch of fucking angels, So yeah, I'm just saying. I completely. I agree that I wish. And by the way, I think some people can pull off being in a minority position and enjoy that. And like, I think Chris Hedges, for example, he's more comfortable being a niche personality than somebody who sells out. But sadly, most people, they don't want that. They're not comfortable with that. They want the approval of the people. They don't want to become a pariah of dinner parties and all that. And again, this is not something I personally want or care, but that's what most people want. Like the surprise is very shocking to me. And by the way, I would say the surprise is partially because of the wrong version of history. We are taught that, for example, FDR was this reformer that stood against the big vested interest or all that, or Abraham Lincoln was, all of that is bullshit. All of that was like reforms that the system needed and was going to happen one way or another, in my view, obviously. And by the way, like, I'm basing my view, like, for example, Eric Hobsbawm makes a very similar argument about the American Civil War and all that. So it's just, I'm not completely I am talking out of my ass, but not fully. It's just like 60% out of my ass. But so
I have to tell you that pessimistic outlook, but convincing arguments you've more or less laid out. And I've just been thinking about the Ralph Nader case. And it is so true that they really destroyed this man, right? Like Ralph Nader is now like he's like exactly like us in the left and stuff. We really like him, but he has like probably the world's smallest audience ever. I know that he has a weekly radio show that I listen to. I wonder how many others in even the YouTube world I sometimes listen to. Let's not
I
exaggerate.
don't even look.
If
I
if they
don't
do
listen to
that,
it
and then
because
he was someone, right? I mean, he was someone like relatively like famous, like for the left and all this. And yeah, they've completely put him. I mean, they've completely marginalized him as much as possible. You can easily see them doing that with Bernie Sanders if things had gotten crazier.
I
But
think
Bernie Sanders still has a good image.
I would say again, if I was Bernie Sanders after 2016, after I found out that they cheated at the DNC elections and all that, they rigged that, I would have actually, I think that time in 2016 was the perfect time to start a third party. And just like Macron did in France, pretty much, I think in the same year or the next year. And Macron has started a completely new party and broke the basically through. And he was an establishment figure for many years. He was an economic advisor to Hollande, the previous president. So I think in 2016, Bernie Sanders had that chance. He missed that chance. And I blame him for missing that chance to an extent. But at the same time, I've made so many mistakes. I just like the level of expectations we have of our politicians. It
Mhm.
seems to be a bit too high in a way. I
Even
mean,
of the best ones.
maybe I'm even of the best ones. Like I think he made a mistake there, and like he got bullied into this whole thing of Trump is the worst like thing ever, and you have to support Hillary, otherwise you become partially responsible for electing the worst president ever, and all that. And he made a mistake there. But if I were in his place, if I were going to dinner parties every night, all my friends were telling me that, if and all the financial incentives in my life were geared towards that, it's it's not that easy. Like
No, for
selling,
sure.
like again, I have it like I don't know. Maybe I'm just such a weak and
No.
shitty person, but I feel like most people who don't sell out haven't been offered a good offer. You know,
No.
like it's just
What
it's
makes it
hard.
harder? Yeah. I would say
Let's
what
put
makes it
aside the whole
harder
like CIA killing you.
and say what makes it harder for someone like Bernie is probably that he is actually a genuine person. So like his wife was friends with like Biden's wife, and like people wanted him to say mean stuff about Biden. But I guess like
No,
for
that
him,
was
not no, I'm
that's
saying yeah, I'm saying not only
that I
does
would
he
have
want to
done easily.
yeah, but I'm saying yeah, not only does he perhaps not want to
Yeah,
become, that big of an outsider, but at the same time, he's also like really nice or like whatever, doesn't want to say bad things because he has like a better heart than or something than most politicians. So he even restricted him more.
yeah, yeah. I agree. I think he had a bit of a too much of a kind personality, to be honest, too.
Yeah, especially in
Like
but
him and Jeremy Corbyn both, in my view, like in a way, the fact that they made them acceptable to the larger populace was the fact that they were so nice, unlike most of the people on the left who are kind of either pessimistic assholes like me or just aggressive douchebags. So but at the same time, that niceness, although made them unable to maneuver against people within their own party that were destroying them.
yeah, and then so okay, so from this video, I mean, one reason that I didn't set you up is because you did a good job of getting us into it. But the Briahna and Jimmy Dore and Richard Wolff one, I was really trying, it was really hard for me to make sense what was the main argument that was being said. They were all kind of saying their own thing. But at the same time, I found one thing interesting that Chris Hedges said was this about this whole third party thing. And if you listen at least to the arguments that Chris Hedges and Richard Wolff were making in this video, it wasn't like so radical about like completely like, flipping the system. And Chris Hedges was pretty much kind of saying that for a third party would be good only because it's going to like steal some votes maybe from the Democrats and push them a little bit to the left. So a very realistic view there, kind of, and nothing that drastic. And he said
Uh, the,
that's what Ralph Nader wanted to do, just put a little bit of pressure on the Democrats. So I like that. For instance, when Kyle talks about third party, he kind of throws it out because, like, are they going to become ever president? And I think Bernie Sanders was this like Hail Mary chance that the left suddenly had of taking over the world somehow. But now that's back to reality. It's these smaller things. And I think Richard Wolff was saying the same thing too. He was talking how in Europe, there are different coalitions of workers and all this very basic things like unions and all this. And he was saying, they kind of cooperate and don't cooperate, but with the leftist parties,
yeah,
they
but
negotiate to get kind of something small out
uh,
of it. So they
yeah,
were both
I,
giving very
I,
manageable
I,
solutions and nothing radical.
my main problem with that interview was that I think Briahna Greyjoy, like us, had heard those arguments thousands of times
Yeah.
before. And she actually she said it in the interview that I had heard that before. But right now I'm talking about this divide within the left, which
Yeah.
I think, to be honest, maybe is not that important, to be honest. But she's like many of us, is looking for a plan of action for the future, is looking what is the actual thing, tangible thing. Okay, what protest? Should we focus on protest, or should we focus on making all the workplaces cops? That's but I think Chris Hedges and Richard Wolff sort of went back to more generalized answers
Yeah.
again. So I found that a bit frustrating. And fair enough, though, they're academics, and Briahna Greyjoy was talking about a more sort of a political scene than an
Yeah.
actual academic scene. About the Richard Wolff argument in the Europe thing and the coalition and stuff, I find that to be a bit of a uh, like apples to oranges comparison. Europe, besides the fact that Anglo word, I think, is completely uh, like the whole Anglo word is different from the European word in my mainland Europe word, culturally, linguistically, and all that. Let's put that aside. That's not a scientifically proven argument or anything like that. But Europe has been like, Europe is a weird place. It's this sort of this semi-colony protected by the US. Their militaries are basically non-existent, and just basically, they don't really have militaries. They're bullshit. They've been living under the umbrella protection of the US for the last 70 years. And in that situation, you can develop many different systems. You can have direct democracy in Switzerland. You can have the other thing there. When you don't have any threats, and you're living in this weird sort of safety, and they don't contribute. None of them contribute their fair share to the NATO. So they live in this fucking. It's like the Canadian people who live in the liberal Canadians who live this good life and then complain about oil, while they are basically living off of the oil industry in Canada, because there is no other industry in Canada. It's all oil. Everything comes from that. Just like everything in America comes from Department of Defense, and then you have this, like, in Europe they form coalitions and do that. Yeah, of course, because there's far more consensus, because there's far more money there, and because everything goes around. It's just a completely different thing. So I don't think proportional representation. I don't think co-ops. I don't think any of that would really help. To be honest, I'm very suspicious of co-ops or workers, like power to workers. It's just, I mean, just for a recent example, if anybody is interested, check out some of the recent town halls in California, one of the wealthier states in the US. And we want to give the just people power in terms of local democracy, in terms of co-ops. Just it's completely idiotic. So I mean, while I found Professor Richard Wolff like one of the most respectable people on earth, with all the respect and all that, I just find that type of argument very naive. I would say the protest one is still naive, but I think that's more likely to work.
Yeah, no, I don't have any too much to add really, or to counter. It's a bit of a pessimistic outlook, but and I agree that stuff that happened in Europe is kind of a different world, and Europe's situation in every way, just comparing it always creates issues because it's so special. Even when you talk about like the US and the wars that it did, comparing with how they rebuilt Europe and everything, it's just always problematic because of how unique I think their situation is. But
Sure,
um
but I would say I know there are loads of arguments against co-ops and stuff,
oh yeah, I
and you
want to
should
touch
have
on co-ops.
challenged.
I wanted to touch on
Yeah, you
co-ops. I
should
knew that
challenge.
there was
Oh,
co-ops. I
okay,
forgot about
good.
co-ops.
All right, challenge me on that because I feel like if you don't challenge me on that, I'm gonna get murdered in the comment section or something.
No, I mean, I don't know which part to challenge. Like, what you would co-ops? I mean, I don't think that they're the worst thing or that they wouldn't work. And I don't think at the same time a co-op means that, all workers make all decisions. I think in just a big company, in a very, very big company, it makes sense a lot. I think those are the ones that we're talking about. I guess in smaller one too, which would be that like workers would have some kind of like shares and make decisions in a way that a shareholder would make. But if not, there will still be managerial levels and all this. And so some of the outcomes might be better for the bigger part of the workforce. So that's kind of how I see a co-op. So I think that's why it can exist. It can exist in Europe. It can exist in the US. It's not like that drastic and radical.
I don't know. I believe in a strong like labor unions that represent interest of the labor, but I think co-ops are an awful idea because I think decentralized forms of organization, unless you are fighting occupy like an invading army, pretty much like Taliban was uh, uh, I think decentralized forms of organization and forms of organization that allow for a safe for large numbers of people tend to be bad because people can be manipulated easily. People are incompetent. People are not that intelligent. I mean, for example, with the labor unions, one of the big issues is that a lot of people don't even show up to vote for labor union leaderships and all that in the UK, for example. So yeah, I mean, it's just I think any organization, including businesses, whenever they move more towards a democratic system, and I'm glad you mentioned shareholders because I wanted to mention them as well because I think they are equally as bad as labor sort of co-op type things. Like that form of management is equally as bad. That's why I think privately owned and privately run companies tend to be far better. What you have with like publicly owned companies are usually a bunch of sort of CEOs and managers scamming investors
Yeah.
and shareholders. And with
Yeah.
co-ops, what you have is a bunch of so-called elected sort of leaders or something. Um, you know, uh,
But I
uh,
don't think it
uh,
needs to be that
yeah.
decentralized. Yeah, I don't see how that would work. But you can pretty much have a cooperative where it is workers owned, so they have shares. So just like shareholders, they don't get that much of a say. Maybe in one or two things per year, they have a say. If not, there's like a management, and the management runs the business like any other
Well,
business. And
when
if
the
you're hired to do a
management,
specific job, that's all you do. You just have like a very
I
small little
think
responsibility. Although Richard Wolff talks about like, I think he talks about this, and then I'll throw it back to you about people like rotating within jobs in a co-op or something or like sector. I mean, as a voter,
that's
as a worker,
that's
I would
by
say
the
no, no,
way.
no, pump the brakes. I'll stick
No,
to
no,
my
by the way, that's exactly the system I think in 80s or 90s that McDonald's and other franchises came up with because they realized that their workers are getting bored. So, for example, you would flip burgers one day
yeah, but that's
and they
different. Those are
realized that
all
if
kind
they
of the
have,
same. You don't
oh,
move
very
someone from
different.
burger flipping to not that it's bad. You don't move someone from the kitchen to marketing or to finance or someone from like accounting to like somewhere else. That
Oh,
wouldn't make
sure,
sense.
sure. No, no,
Yeah.
but what Richard Wolff was saying, for example, like somebody, for for example, the role of let's say treasurer of the company is rotates among the people that are within the finance department. Or can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, I
No?
accidentally hit my head. So yeah, and again, I don't know. I just think it's I don't know. I think it's
Yeah, I mean,
you
that way
when
sounds,
you okay. Let me put it this way, and I'll make one video about this hopefully one day about power and all that. I hate decentralized structures, especially co-ops, shareholders, whatever. And I don't mean about the situation you're describing where it's very limited. But I think decentralized structures are very bad because all they do is they pretend there is no a strong power structure while there will ultimately a hidden power structure emerge. It's kind of like free market. There is no free market. It's a delusion. Monopolies control the market. So I see it the same way. And that's why I hate cops because, and a couple of experiences I had with cops, like the management of them were as corrupt as most private businesses. I knew a couple of factory cops in Iran, and they were very the people who represented the workers
yeah.
were extremely
Yeah,
corrupt.
no, they're definitely, a co-op doesn't definitely make you immune to all kinds of corruption, I guess. That is for
No, it's
sure.
just and in fact I think decentralized forms really open up the door to corruption by by like this pretension that power structures cannot, while power structures always emerge one way or another, I think.
But okay, so actually the survey that we have for our next story, I think that gives you a lot of argument for your skepticism that you have towards giving more people, I guess, democratic rights or like voting. Well, not voting, yeah, more rights in like running the country and everything in the survey. If you don't, if you, yeah, I mean, I think you could interpret the findings that way. So I don't know if we have anything much to say about the Richard Wolff and Briahna and stuff. Yeah, overall, I would say it wasn't. I mean, at first, I was so excited for the
They're not
for the
very
video.
substantive.
That and yeah, and then kind of didn't. Yeah, I just felt like Brianna's questions were just like they were not landing, or the things that she was referring to, it was just not connecting. The perfect example being the Hassan Piker question or like statement, which I'm not sure if Chris Hedges knew who she was talking about. But
I mean, yeah.
yeah,
Although I would say that's one place I think uh, Chris Hedges. I mean, I think overall, I really like her interview style. I think she's one of the best
yeah,
interviewers out there, Briahna Greyjoy. But I do think that place, I felt like because like I don't know if Chris Hedges like I don't think that was a substantive question in a way, and I was glad that Chris Hedges tried to actually redirect it towards like the whole idea of these type of activists or well, like a type of activist. Although yeah, that's but that question fell to me out of nowhere a bit.
yeah, same. But okay, Sam, let's move to our second story. And yeah, this through this one, I discovered The Amazing Atheist, which I think had one of the worst and most naive takes and solutions I have heard in a while. Maybe you will oppose that a bit, but let's first give some context. So Kyle made a video where he referred to a Pew Research survey, which found that a lot of Americans are for more censorship of quote unquote false information on the internet. So internet censorship. And Kyle was very horrified by the, the kind of number of Americans who agree for it. So let me hear roughly half of US adults, I mean, they had a representative sample of 11,000 people. But yeah, so US adults, let's just take what they're saying. Roughly half of US adults now say the government should take steps to restrict false information. So pretty much censorship. And then they kind of break down the results between people who say that it should be the government who should be doing the censorship, or if it's people in the tech companies. And then it seems like a higher percentage of people are now for this kind of censorship. And so before getting to the amazing atheist, which is just ridiculous, I wanted to stay on this survey bit And Kyle was so kind of horrified by this and saying, you know, I can't believe that half of Americans would want such a thing. And of course, he opposes it. And so do I, because I don't think it solves any issues. But my main problem from this survey is, and the fact that Kyle, I think, shouldn't have taken it this seriously, is that to a normal person, when you say like, oh, shouldn't like social to a normal person, so someone who isn't, you know, in these conversations all the time about censorship, YouTube censorship, Twitter and all this, they would, if you tell them, hey, shouldn't like, you know, the tech companies or the government restrict false information on Instagram or Twitter, they'd be like, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, why would they want misinformation to be out there? So, and I guess they haven't thought about it enough to be like, oh wait, I mean, what's false information? What is not? How are you going to do this? This doesn't really sound feasible. So that's why the survey, I think, tried to capture something that was really hard to capture, and we shouldn't really pay much attention to the results, I would say, because of like, you know, what is false information and people not thinking about that too much. So yeah, let me throw it back to you.
First of all, I completely disagree. I really like the survey because I looked into it and they provided the methodology and the sample size. The sample size was about 11,000 people.
Yeah.
I looked at the questionnaire. They had good questions, and if the questions weren't clear, like that's what is the answer that leads you this way, and that I thought it was very well designed. So that was actually my take on the study. And secondly, so I would disagree. So I would say first of all, your argument, you're right. Yes, most people would do that, what you just said. And most people, most people answer just in a knee-jerk reaction to most questions. And that's why most people should be very much limited in their responsibilities and should not be allowed to do to contribute to most decision makings. So yeah, I agree with you there.
And by the way, that's the part that I said kind of supports your your previous arguments. Yeah, man.
It just and the idea that, for example, if you sit down with them and explain to them, they probably change their mind and all that, I find that highly naive, to be honest. Most people don't. And I would I would add that the idea that, for example, when they vote, they spend like, oh, because, you know, now I'm voting, it's more important, so I should actually think about it and all that. They probably, like, that's the thing. This questionnaire, which I was so surprised that it had 80%, 80% of the people responded back, about 11,000 people. This questionnaire was actually, you had to like read the question and answer, and you got this response.
But while
as you said, most of the time you just ask people, do you think misinformation on internet is bad? Yeah, it's bad. Should it be limited? Yeah, I guess it should be limited. What is misinformation? I don't know.
Yeah.
And no, that's how you get
a few things though I would like to say. The Pew Research surveys, they always have the same kind of sample of representative. They go about it the same way. So previously you've said, oh, this sample is not representative of that. They always go about it this way, just to put that.
No, but it wasn't Pew. It was other research.
No, it's always the same. It was Pew. They always do it this way. What do you mean? Like this?
No, I'm not saying. No. You said in the past. You've said when did I say?
No, they were Pew. Anyway, let's put that aside. Okay, but they were Pew.
Okay, if any commentator finds an example of me, because I'm just saying that, first of all, 80% response is very good.
They all get a lot of responses because they're people from a specific panel. So yes, they're supposed to be representative, but they're member of the Centers America Trends panel, and they got paid between $5 and $20 for completing it. So, I mean, they do get back, but all these things don't really undermine it. I agree that the methodology is good and the questions weren't bad. My problem isn't with the questions. My problem was with the fact that this is such a hard thing to ask people about. I think if you ask people, do you want free or better healthcare, is easier because people don't know what false information, they've never thought about the capacity. I guess those ones are problematic
I'm
too, and you
sorry, but
shouldn't read into it
yeah.
too much. But I'm
Well,
saying I
it's
wouldn't read into this survey just because people have thought very little about this, like most
I
people,
would
I would assume. And so they're just saying that because
I
anybody, yeah, sure, there should be less false
to be honest,
information and tech should do something about it. We just know that it's not something that's possible.
look, first of all, I'm very surprised that it's not like 70% or 80% because like the idea most people in the world are religious, and most religious people, if they get a chance, they will fucking censor you and they will get rid of the misinformation, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's one thing. So I was surprised that, and now when I read the thing, and yeah, it's a representative of the bourgeois class of America, so of course makes sense.
No, of
But
everyone. They tried to
but
get others too.
the idea that choose like government run healthcare or a privately run healthcare, that's easier to choose between from than the idea that the idea that you fucking can't you understand that different people have different like ideas and different things. But can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is like 10%.
Yeah, no, I can hear
it
you.
just gave me the warning.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Keep
So,
going.
yeah, I might cut off in a moment and have to change my headphone. But the idea that I'm sorry if you can't understand this. This is like really basic shit, man. Like, but actually, I think there are more like complexities about maybe government, if they run the healthcare, maybe they don't have enough funding. Maybe they don't.
Yeah,
Blah,
no,
blah, blah.
that one's not easy too. This one strikes me as being a particularly hard one for like normal
How
people,
is
and they
this
think
hard?
about it less. I don't know.
Should
Restrict
people
false
be
information.
allowed?
Yeah.
Should government regulate information or not? Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and I
you
guess
have
half of the
again.
people, maybe half of the
You give
people.
too much credit to the people.
Well, I guess here I'm giving too little. I would say,
I
or
mean,
actually the other way, yeah, also too much, because some
there is no
indeed
people.
know
To be
that there's
fair,
no false information, but they kind of would like their site to not get censored. But just to exemplify how crazy people's thinking is about false information, let's move on to this amazing atheist guy, right? So let me know.
that's
Yeah, let me know you
yeah,
can't
yeah.
hear me anymore. So the amazing atheist guy, he goes on, he finds this, that it's crazy, and he says, of course, there should be some form of censorship. And then I'll play the clip now because I can't do justice to it. And I think you've listened to it, Sam, and how ridiculous his proposal is about this like group of like scientists who would form a panel, and all cases would go to them, and they would decide what is true and what isn't. And if there isn't a consensus, somebody can challenge them from the outside. I mean, it was the most like childish thing I have ever heard.
I think that what needs to happen is this. There needs to be a government administration that is made up entirely of scientists who are appointed to their position based on the merits of their scientific achievements and not based on their politics.
So a Ministry of Truth.
The fact check administration, okay? The FCA. The FCA should have the power to determine if any given claim is incontrovertibly false and if it is socially deleterious. If they find that a claim is both incontrovertibly false and socially deleterious, then they should be empowered to stop its spread by any reasonable means. If any reasonable doubt exists that a claim is false, they should, of course, err on the side of freedom of speech. Whenever the FCA determines that a claim is both false and harmful, which should not be often based on the criteria I've outlined, a full report on the findings of this administration should be made public. The report would detail exactly what evidence led them to rule the claim false and what evidence led them to rule the claim harmful. This way, there is transparency to the process and people can look over the evidence for themselves. If the FCA is suspected to have abused their power to stifle dissent or for any other reason, as in Kyle's Iraq war hypothetical, then there should be an appeals process whereby a public hearing is held to determine if the body acted incorrectly. The entire thing should be completely transparent.
In my life, and a complete like lack of what, you know, in science, not everything is set in stone, things change, none of this taken into consideration. But the idea was so naive. And yeah, the I mean, I think people talk about healthcare in slightly more sophisticated ways than this. I mean, he just gave the most childish take ever. Maybe it's unfair to say that a lot of Americans think this way. So my bad about that. But his take is just an example of how childish it was. What do you think? What would you say about that?
So yeah, now I'm guessing you've seen the video. So I would say that I think what he's describing is already exists. Like it's called the university system, the healthcare system. Like you have a CDC. It's made out of people that are experts in for example, diseases and such. And then you have FDA, Food and Drugs and all that. And each country has, like, what he does say about especially natural, like, because I am philosophically, to be honest, I am very sort of postmodernist. And for people who know, like, Paul Farbender, like, I don't see that much difference between science and magic and religion and all that. But I'm not like that, like completely fully gone. Like I do understand natural sciences and cause and effect. And we live on Earth where Newtonian laws, I mean, maybe there is a multiverse and maybe whatever, but for now we live in this fucking world and all that. So I don't understand what he's saying already exists. You already have panels of scientists. What do you think journals are supposed to?
But I guess they don't go.
You can criticize them for not being rigorous enough, for not being good enough, for making mistakes, and people do that all the time. But the only extra thing we are talking about right now, which I don't think he really addresses in his argument, is that do you think government or private companies should be allowed to regulate information online?
So the FDA, instead of saying all this, instead of debating, like you're saying, on top of debating, they would come out and like regulate what is being said about that debate, or like advise, I guess. That's what he would want. They would come and tell the tech company, okay, so don't let people say X, Y, and Z because we've decided that is the case. Because you're right, there are a panel of scientists that discuss different things.
Yes, and
don't do that second part.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you anymore. I'm going.
So I guess, sorry. So just I was trying to say, so yes, they do have, those things do kind of exist to a certain extent, and they don't necessarily find things to be false. So that's the part of the scientific part he doesn't understand. But and look, they don't go around then saying, what can and cannot be said.
And by the way, again, like, look, when we are talking about internet, I don't think we are not talking about, like, nobody's saying that nobody's saying Journal of Medicine should publish my article with no qualification about how COVID is not real and it's all a hoax made by the American government or whatever. Like, nobody's saying that. People are saying the comment sections on popular platforms that now have become one of the main sources of people's, like, they do perform the same functions and as telephones, as the old public squares and all that. So we want that. Like, nobody's saying I don't think he's even addressing the real question, and I think what he's suggesting already exists in pretty much every extent. Science.
Not in the cartoonish way that he kind of put it together, that like everything they go and
because science is very diverse.
What is false, and we have it in some areas, right? I guess we don't have the, like, there isn't one that was deciding like whether weapons of mass destructions exist or not. I mean, we have them in certain areas, but there isn't this kind of body that decides, that debates everything, right? In every area of life.
That's different. That's not science. That's like that's like a government. Like, that's different. But I would say, like, sadly, we even have too much of that. We have that for literature. We have that for art, where it's completely subjective. And we still have these council of people who've been tricked into, by the way, like, oh, we're believing into like copied paintings or real paintings, or like if you show them a painting, like, what's his name? Check out Who is America, Sacha Baron Cohen's, the Borat guy's latest work. Like, we have that for even bullshit shit like art, which is completely subjective. We have gatekeepers. So of course we have them for science. Of course we have for like, who do you think gives out the license for somebody to become a doctor? Do you think doctors just start becoming doctors? It's just, I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what he's although I
guess he was just drawing these organizations to like a cartoonish level. I mean, it was just like that's all I can really say about it.
I really think he did. I think sometimes people give me it's such, because I used to like this guy as well. Like, this idea that they unbearable. Think like science. He comes from that. He was from early YouTube, Shock Jock, what was that Swedish guy? PewDiePie, whatever that. Everybody was. It was very odd time on YouTube. Anyway, but I would say it's just sometimes people reflect me as so stupid that they think science is like one thing or something. Like there is such a thing as science, and then we have a board of scientists. You do know that we have physics, chemistry, and then there's all these like social science. Anyways,
and even within them, they don't reach. There's no such thing as like
exactly.
The truth. I mean, things are dismissed, and there is consensus towards something, but there's always the outlier paper anyway that still gets published, that meets all the requirements for publishing and is even further scrutinized, I guess, because it's contradictory, but it still goes through. But
that's the thing.
You said something interesting.
So you read two different like political scientists from the same school, and they say we love each other. This guy is the man. You read their books, and they completely different ideas.
So I mean, this ministry of truth that he was kind of suggesting wouldn't go anywhere when it comes to the social sciences. You bring them with one statement, and they'll be stuck on that statement for the rest of their lives. They're never gonna. They're never going to. But you mentioned that how the comment sections now of social media platforms and all this. It's kind of like telephone where people used to talk and everything. And I think the Vanguard guy is actually Gavin. He made a good point, which I guess we don't know this with figures and numbers. But this whole narrative that misinformation is out of control now too is most likely wrong. And as far as I can remember, bullshit. There wasn't social media before, but parents and everyone in society was just spreading false information left and right. So that's another exaggerated trend. I was glad they pointed that out. Yeah, it's not rocket science, but it's true.
No, this is such a good point you just made. I like
credit the Vanguard guys first. Credit Gavin first.
Yeah, exactly. Credit Gavin first, because exactly, because this comes back to my, besides humans, what can you say, just bottomless capability for incompetence and laziness and evil. You have this idea that we are special. We, like, in our generation is a special. For example, there was no flat earthers before. There was no flat since Middle Ages. Like, by the way, check out the works of Mr. Jones from Monty Python. He wrote some of the best books on medieval history, and in medieval times about the same level of people believed in flat earth as they do now. And since ancient Greek times, people had known that earth was round and had guessed that earth was going around sun, and the theory of atom and this idea. Idiot people have always been the majority, and but it's just that they segment into different groups. Like, some of them are flat earthers, some of them are anti-vaxxers, some of them are Republicans, some of them are Democrats, some of them are, so they just idiocy has just such a variety that it gives you this delusion that it isn't there. But yeah, I do. It's just the idea that social media has allowed these idiotic ideas. No, by the way, the same, go read about the people who wrote about newspapers, books. Like,
of course, I mean, propaganda,
like,
that term wasn't created 10 years ago. That refers to misinformation back in the day. And also, of course, misinformation
propaganda,
among people.
Propaganda. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, this is a bad one. Propaganda refers, the literal translation is public relations. And I do think what we do here and what anybody does is propaganda. Art is propaganda. But yeah, so I just wanted to defend propaganda there.
No, fair enough in that way that you described it. But anyways, I meant like spreading misinformation deliberately by governments existed before, and people spreading misinformation, whatever, rumors or whatever it is that you want to say before existed as much as now, and they're not something new. But this brings me exactly to two pet peeves of mine. One is thinking that today is very special. So like, misinformation is out of control now or something. The second one that I hate is thinking that the past was like so good, or like, the good old times and so special. They're contradictory sometimes, but they're both equally bullshit, I find. And if you want to add a third one to it, that's similar.
I think they tend to complement each other because No, actually, you're right. Though you do get
sometimes. No, I agree. Sometimes
these
they can
times are
complement
so
each
special.
other. No, they can complement each other.
Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't.
Yeah, no, you can say now false information is out of control. Back in the day, in the good old days, there wasn't, or something like that. But yeah. Can you still hear? Yeah. And the third one connected to this in a sense is when parents tell their kids, oh, like kids nowadays are X, Y, and Z. Why are they like this? I never understand why they say that, because they're technically critiquing and criticizing themselves because they're the ones who raised this unique generation.
I suppose my dad always made this joke that they found the ancient tablets in southern Iran, and it was written in the cuneiform.
Okay, yeah,
it was
cursive.
written in no, not cursive, cuneiform, like the ancient.
Okay.
Not cursive. It was ancient, man, like Egyptian.
Okay, my bad. Okay.
And they found this tablet, and they and stuff, and they spent years translating it and all that. And I asked my dad, what did it say? And my dad said, kids back in the days, kids used to respect their fathers. These days, they don't give a shit about their. So yeah, it's just
that's the funniest. That's
going around forever.
And whose fault is that? I'm not going to say that because that's pointing like you messed up yourself. So
yeah, Dad, don't ever criticize me. It's you.
Seriously. But okay, Sam, before we move on to the tweet section with just a few fun tweets to wrap up the rest of this fun all over the place podcast, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some hate for not making any sense 80% of the time. I admit it. It's a weird one.
I'm going to get hate for pretty much opposing humanity. No. So I think you'll be fine.
But okay, let's get even more confusing probably. So do you have this Reddit article in front of you? Sorry, this Reddit thread?
Yes. That's
so.
Yes.
It says
got me angry.
Okay, calm down. So it says climate change is driving couples to skip having children. What's your take on this? And the thing that bothered me about this is that I find it two things. So one is, okay, if you don't want to have kids, sure, don't have kids. That's great. But I never understand this because there are two things to it anyway. One, is it saying that are people saying, let's say, are couples, they don't want to have kids because they're going to bring their kids to a world that is particularly messed up, which again, I understand everything that's going on with climate change, but it's not necessarily going to be messed up for everyone everywhere. And if you bring your kids, so that might be the case and might not even be the case. And the second one, and the second one is, yeah, pretty much living in some places. And pretty much the second one is that, oh, I don't want to contribute to climate change and all this by bringing another kid and a child. And I think this is where Sam really gets pissed off at what I say, which is, if you think that way, if you raise your kid in a certain way, in an environment or climate change conscious, and they just like change the opinion of like two people in their lives and make them have a relatively different lifestyle, they can cancel, right, with my math, and neutralize any kind of emission effects or any impact that they have had on this earth. So I don't see why they don't think about it this way. And a few people actually pointed out is that if the people who care about the climate and environment stop having kids, we're just going to be left with the kids of the people who don't give a shit about the planet or the environment. So maybe it's not a good idea. But let me throw it back to you, Sam. See what you have to say. The floor is yours.
First of all, for whatever reason, if people are not having kids, well done. Don't do it. Don't. For whatever reason they do it, I support. Secondly, I mean, it's
don't, are you getting pissed off at me, or I don't even know where you're going?
I'm genuinely getting. Yeah, I'm trying to calm down. Yeah, look, man. Human activity, right? Because first of all, let me just make my position clear that I think humanity at this point, if humanity is a cancer to this earth, at this point we have metastasized. Is that the correct word? And we've entered the bloodstream. We are everywhere. It's over. It's all done. The planet is gonna go through a major sort of revamp, get rid of most of us probably in the most gruesome fashion, and then live on. So that's where I think we are going. That's the prediction. But when you have less humans, man, and by the way, I refer you to a QI. QI is this fantastic show on British show where they play trick questions, where they show a family, and they say that if this family gets rid of which item, they get rid of the most CO2 footprint. And they have a house, they have a car, they have a dog, they have a trees, they have a blah. And guess which one is the one that gets rid of most CO2?
Themselves?
They can't get rid of themselves. Yeah. So
what were the items again? So there was a house, there's a car.
They have a house, they have a washing machine, they have a car, they have they had a fireplace, they have a dog, they have a cleaner thingy, Roomba, whatever.
So which one uses the most CO2 emissions? Which one emits the most CO2?
Which leaves?
Yeah.
They had
either the dog or the car.
The dog, it's the fucking dog, because it's the living creature, because it breathes, and if they could get rid of themselves, it would be humans. You keep,
but I don't believe that more than a car.
Wait. You keep thinking. No, you should believe that it's science. But
how much a car running? How much? Like a car that does how many kilometers per week?
Man,
I'm just curious, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. You keep
all these are
focusing
important.
On this quality bullshit that if these two people live like fucking monks that live on one fucking almond a day, of course, like we can have 30 billion people on Earth. But that's not gonna happen.
But that's not what I said.
That's never gonna happen.
But that's not what I said. Not have 30 million people. Of course, there is a certain degree to it, but let's say if there's someone who is just
I'm exaggerating
full
your
into
consumerism
to make them
less
I know
stupid.
But if someone is full into make them less stupid, you mean make them stupid. If someone is engaged in ridiculous consumerism, drives their car around everywhere for absolutely no reason, buys stuff all the time, only eats meat and all this shit, right? I haven't done the calculations, but I would assume if this person started instead of shopping 20 times a year, just shops twice, which would be more than enough, and doesn't, rides their bike instead of taking their car, and changes their diet, I would have thought that it would have a much bigger impact than the example that you put out. So you could pretty much like cancel out your emissions if you help someone transform like that.
You keep thinking in this very small scale extreme examples. I don't care about the smallest scale extreme example of a man eating an almond a day or a man buying 20 cars a day. Majority of people live a normal life. I don't even drive a car, right? But I'm not a fucking normal person. Normal people have a car. Normal people marry. Normal people want to have children. Normal people want to have a pet. Normal people want to go on vacations in summers. Normal people want to do this. And if you want to have that quality of life for everybody, you can't have 7 billion of them. You can't. With the current technology, you can't. With the current space, you can't. That's it. The quantity matters as much as quality.
Sure, the quantity does matter.
Yes, you are right.
But you can have different versions of this that you laid out. You can have like kids and a house, but you can do it in one way where you would be responsible for much more environmental damage or emissions. And you could do it in another way, which you would be responsible for much less.
No. Whatever you do, living is environmental damage, right?
Of course, but I mean, you can damage the environment in different ways and different extents.
less. But if you're gonna do it so less that your living is like a monk in India, fuck that living. I don't want to live like that. And I don't think most people do either.
Yeah, but I don't think it needs to be that extreme.
Tell me the case. Tell me the average.
I give you an example.
Person in a 7 billion person. Give me an example. Give me how would that person that convinced 2 other people would live? Would he have a car? Would he be able to go on a vacation every 3 months? Would he have a jacuzzi in his apartment?
But you can't necessarily have everything. So maybe if you keep on adding things, of course, there's a limit of things.
Well, I want everything for everyone.
But that's not possible. Even if you have 2 people, you might not be able to do that.
It is completely possible. It is completely possible if we control our population.
No, at a certain limit, if you keep on adding stuff, if everybody wanted to have their own nuclear bomb or something, you can't do it if everybody has it. Or if everybody wanted to, I don't know how or do what. I mean, they obviously can't.
Sure, yeah. Of course, there are exceptions, but I do think if everybody want to live like a fucking king, a very average, like.
But I don't think most people do, and I don't think most people do. And if you're obsessed with consumerism, you don't need to buy. Some people can be happier and find better to, instead of buying maybe a phone every year, buying it every 2 to 3 years. But all these add up. I don't think there will be less.
That doesn't make any difference.
You're cutting it in half. You're cutting the production in half.
You keep thinking, yeah, exactly. You keep thinking these type of incremental changes would matter. They don't matter. Even if all 7 billion of us.
But also in the real world of today, population control wouldn't happen only because there's such huge inequality, and some people, they barely emit any emissions. So unless you're kind of controlling a certain part of the population from certain countries, you wouldn't be making much of a difference. So if you go get rid of most poor people in a lot of countries, or if you put like population control there,
of course it would. Of course they would.
Who is probably responsible? I don't have the numbers and figures. I don't have the numbers and figures because I didn't know we were going to have this argument.
About responsible.
Okay.
It's not about responsibility, man. It's about, look at India. Who are the most taxi drivers? In Iran, who are the most taxi drivers? Who are the people who use their cars mostly? People who work as sort of freelance taxi drivers, like Uber drivers. Do you think they would exist if there was less population? You have this extra population, and then you create this. If there is less population, there would be enough buses, there would be enough trains, there would be enough public place, there would be enough everything for everybody.
Not
But no,
necessarily.
we create so many people. Then as a result, we create so many other stuff to feed these people and to be able to provide jobs for these people. And of course, everything goes to shit.
Even if you cut the
not about the
population
fact
in
that
half,
I know Jeff Bezos.
there could still be all these problems. You could still not have enough public space.
No.
You could still not
No,
have
I
enough
don't
buses.
agree.
If you don't make it properly, China manages to provide so much for a seventh of the world's population.
No.
No, what?
Doesn't. First of all, it doesn't. China pretends to be a communist, but China is a very capitalist state.
Yeah, no, I didn't say,
most of its people live in poverty. So no, first of all. Second of all, you keep thinking that the structures will stay the same. People will stay the same if there's less population. One of the reasons, for example, that the laborers in Europe managed to get a high upper hand against their masters was the Black Death, because it reduced the labor size, and now laborers were in a position to negotiate better positions. When there are fewer people, structures will change. I'm not just saying, sorry, you stuck for a second. I'm not just saying that, of course, if you get rid of all the tribes in Africa who don't emit any emission and you keep Jeff Bezos and Richard Bransons of this world, nothing would change. But when you change drastically this overpopulation in cities, these 7 billion on one fucking planet, this is idiotic.
But like,
when
we don't know that
everything.
But how do you know that? Like, how would you know what
because
is
it used
the
to
right
be
number? Like, but what, there wasn't, like, back then, 100 years ago, there were far less people, and look at all the insane things that still happened and that were created and everything. And then there were far more people now, and some of those issues don't exist. So like World War I happened, World War II happened in less populated countries. In a less populated world, sorry.
But then we did it's a bit of the reason why we have this overpopulation is because of technology and medicine. And now if we control ourselves and revert to population levels 100 years or 200 years ago, then that technology and medicine can serve us all in an equal manner rather than just some of us.
I think that just assumes that then we use it well. I'm not saying that maybe it will be easier to do it that way. And certainly no matter how well we use our resources, of course, there's not enough resources for X amount of people. And the populations are declining anyway in a lot of places. So, I mean, we're not going to reach astronomical ones. But
overall,
I think even if we had those populations before.
Oh, in Japan and Italy it is, but in Catholic land in South America, they're
so it balances itself out. I mean, I think the reports say that population will grow all the way until 9 billion or so and then start dropping based on the current trajectories.
That's what the current trajectories say. And by that time, 9 billion.
I just don't see how less people necessarily leads to these things. And then you can see some countries with bigger populations within a similar context do much better than countries with less population.
I feel like I explain myself fully. And I really don't understand why you don't get how there is limited resources.
No, I do get that.
Limited number of people. And those people are not angels. They're not all gonna share. They're not gonna all change their... I mean, there is this video. Hopefully we'll play it right now. And in this video, Gore Vidal, this is 70, I believe now 90, maybe 70 years ago. And in this, Kam here hasn't seen it. I mean, I think it's already too late. But we're going to see more of what Gore Vidal describes in this video. Famines, mass murders, all the things we've seen during the last 30, 40 years, 60 years. It's not just the fundamental structural reason for it is that there's just too many people. We don't have the organization to distribute the resources enough. And
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's where I
that's it.
disagree, because I do understand that there are limited resources. But I'm just saying that even with less population, if we don't take care of management and different types of lifestyle
Of
and all
course,
this,
but
you're still going to
when you
have
have
the same
less.
issues.
No, but when you have less population, you can educate that population. You can give that population food. You can do that. Like, you keep ignoring
You
that. Of
think?
course, I agree with you. If you have 10 billion people who are educated and all angels, it would be fucking fantastic. But it's never gonna happen when you have 7 billion people.
Yeah,
It's
but I'm
only gonna
saying,
happen when you have.
but it can also be challenging or equally challenging or not done if you have 2 billion people.
No, it's not gonna be equally challenging. Compare
It could
India
be.
to Singapore.
Yeah, okay,
I
but
mean,
those are two
okay.
drastic examples. But
Yeah, well, one
cases,
has a large land and a large amount of resources and a large population, and the other one has a small land and a small population. And again, I know it's a idiotic comparison
but
in
you
many
can
ways,
take,
but you completely ignore this quantity thing
no,
and
I
just
don't
go for
completely
like,
ignore.
no,
And
it
then
doesn't
fine, if I'm
matter.
completely ignoring it, then you have my word. I'll stop
You
completely ignoring it.
no, you
And
just said 2 billion can be as difficult
could be,
as
yeah, it
7.
could be if you don't make other things better. And
Again,
you know,
yeah,
there's
it
so
could.
many
I mean,
countries
yeah.
you can take. Germany is one of the bigger European countries, and it has more than anything for most of its citizens compared to other smaller European countries. It provides more. Now they all have
Oh,
historical and contextual reasons, but
Marshall Plan.
that's
I remind you of Marshall
I
Plan.
know. So exactly. So there are all
Surprise,
these
surprise.
factors. But okay, I'm looking forward to watching this Gore Vidal video. And now let's assume that I've watched it and our viewers have watched it as well. Let's just move on and wrap up with
Fuck.
just
Yeah.
some
Do you
tweets.
have any comments on the video you watched? No, but
So
this,
let
like, I'm sorry if I get animated, but I just feel like people ignore quantity in favor of quality too
no.
much sometimes, because I used to have the same discussions with my friends at uni where they talk about no growth and changing the way that people live and all that, and I just think it's all, I don't know. Good luck with that.
I mean, no, good luck. Fair enough. Good luck. But
Since
for
60s we've
sure,
been trying that.
for sure, I'm saying that it's not gonna, I'm not saying that it's gonna happen, but at the same time, I don't think that different ways of population control that would be effective would happen. So you can say the same thing, nor if
I
population
think
or the numbers
edu-
alone would have positive impacts if other things don't follow it.
yeah, I feel like we
Like
exhausted this
Lebanon's a small
discussion
country,
here.
right? Like Lebanon's a small country, but all these issues, Afghanistan.
Don't bring up. Let's just do the tweets, okay?
Yeah,
Don't bring up
okay.
Lebanon.
So let's start with the first one, and then I know we just did 2 back-to-back podcasts, so I'm not even sure if we have much to say. But the first one is Anna congratulating Hassan Piker for his career, and then has to throw. Are you on that one, or are you looking at a different one?
No, I just
Oh,
I forgot about the congratulation part.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but she just throws a little jab that makes kind of no sense. Having suck up, being suck without having suck up to right wingers like Tucker Carlson. Enjoy the home. Nothing wrong with having nice things. Again, main thing I would say about this is that it's childish. The tweet. That's all I really have to say. I don't know if you have anything else to say or about Hassan Piker buying a house and some of the weird reactions to it. Like, I don't know what people thought. I mean, if this guy's relatively famous on Twitch, that means he's making money. And yeah.
And from what I understand, he got it on a mortgage, so it's
And of
not like.
course.
And yeah, I mean, I think any personal attack on somebody for buying a house is ludicrous. But this tweet felt like also like you can congratulate people without dissing others.
Right.
And it clearly is targeting, I feel like, some other people who recently bought a house. So it's just, what are you, 13?
It's insane.
Or in
But
high
some of
school?
the, yeah. But some of the criticisms though, like I was trying to tell you that I was like listening on the Vanguard, and there were like people were like sending messages and saying, "Oh, so Hassan Piker could have donated some of the money or done something else with it and stuff." These are kind of like they sounded very liberal arguments to me. They were like, because like liberalism and philanthropy. So within the system, you make your money and you give it to other people as well a little bit. So then everyone's happy. They weren't very socialist sounding arguments that were made towards Hassan Piker. Go ahead.
To be fair, I think Hassan Piker himself, from what I've seen, is himself one of these idiots. I hate his programming. I hate his show.
Yeah, no,
and
same
all
here.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, but so I think he's himself is one of these idiots, and I've seen him criticize others for their income and all that, and like politicians. And I don't think politicians are any, like, people keep pretending politicians are this like sort of different group, but I think he can buy any house he wants, and I do think, he's like the Vanguard commentator's criticism was just idiotic and childish.
Yeah. And then this one, I mean, I just found really funny and ironic. I shared you, Sam, before. This person somehow had $20 to give for a super chat to the Vanguard, but then it's like, isn't Piker a product of nepotism? I mean, sure, fine. He was, yes, on the Young Turks and stuff, but let's take it easy a bit. He wasn't Ivanka Trump or something.
Take it easy a bit. Let me answer that thing, because this nepotism bullshit that a lot of people on left, I'm sorry, but these working class people who are mechanics and these working class people who are like drillers or this nepotism is far fucking more often likely to happen in the working classes than in the bourgeoisie,
which is
or
not bad, which is not
bad, or whatever the fuck they are.
Which is not bad. And the funny thing is, they brand themselves like that a lot. In the US, they brand themselves like that a lot. Like John and Sons, garage.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Akbaro Pesaron, everywhere is the thing. This idea that this nepotism is this weird thing. Oh, he gave his cousin an internship. Oh, fuck off.
Like, no, like,
because you didn't have anybody to give you
It's slightly more serious. I slightly take it more seriously if like you're in the government, of course, and you hire your niece, or if you work in a very big public limited company or something, then like the context is different.
Sure, or it's like a brain surgery or somebody like doing physical, but this is fucking what? His uncle wasn't supposed to give him a platform on his show to talk about bullshit stuff? Like what was he putting somebody's life in danger? Oh, fuck off, nepotism. And then you don't understand corruption. You think it's this
anyway, let's keep on going with this message one part by one. Then this next part also really rubbed me the wrong way. It's like, what work does Piker actually do? Well, maybe you don't value that. Maybe you think he shouldn't be able to make money like that. But hey, he's a streamer. That's how he makes his money. So I don't really understand, what does this person mean? What work does Piker actually do? He's a streamer. Now, if you have major problems with the capitalist system or something like that, I mean, sure, we can talk about that if you're gonna make a huge
by the way,
argument
what the fuck do you do? No, what the fuck does he do?
Then this person goes on, I work and live in my community.
Like what kind of educator?
Yeah, exactly.
I live in my community. Who doesn't live in their community? Who lives in somebody else's fucking community?
This is someone who wrote. This is not a real person. This is not a real person.
Jesus Christ.
The sentences make no sense. And then giving $20 for a comment like that, just exactly that the person says.
Robots doesn't give.
No, like someone who's like, trying to put out like this kind of argument. I don't know why, but like, they kind of like pander, oh, I live in my community and all this. What does he do?
I live in my wait, what the fuck does
I guess
that
I find
mean,
it too stupid. Exactly. That's why I feel like it's not a real
if I'm an Iranian, yeah. If I'm Iranian, which I am, by the way, and I go to France and I live there for like 10 years, I don't live in my community. I'm a traitor. Is that what he's saying? And by the way, educator, what the fuck does that mean? Like, what are you, a teacher to children or teacher to adults? Or
But Sam,
what do you teach?
that
Like
is so
philosophy of
funny.
life? Just
Hold on.
fuck off,
I hadn't
you
seen that
pretentious
before.
fucks.
Yeah, no, I
And,
hadn't
and
seen
I'm
that before.
defending Hassan
Live in my
Piker.
community. I love that one. Hassan Piker, I think, also bought a house
I
in his
live in-
community. So
Yeah, exactly. So
man.
Hassan wanted to live in his community, so
Yeah.
fuck you.
And then some of the
all
other
you
stuff I was
jealous-
hearing on people who's sending money in the Vanguard, they're like, he should have bought a crappier house or something. Like, man, it's not like he should have bought like a crappier house or a cheaper house. I mean, it's not like Hassan Piker is a billionaire. If he like messes up one or two of these decisions, he probably has his mom's like poor name or his parents' poor name on the mortgage lease or something. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you're gonna mess up people's life. I just find it extremely naive, some of the things that are said. They're not real life. Like what? Hassan Piker should have been, okay, let me get a crappier house. I mean, come on, like let's be a bit realistic. Do you get what I'm saying? I'm just saying it's so childish.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Let's put this aside and how sad do you have to be to comment on somebody else? Like, fuck you, and all these people who think about this, comment about this, go fuck yourselves. And you are not a critic, you're not a critical thinker, you're just a typical person who wants to nag about somebody else doing better than you. That's what
100%. And you pointed out how some people put out videos. What were they saying? They were criticizing Jimmy Dore for the exact same thing, but not criticizing Hassan Piker. Like those videos went around. Okay, Sam, the next
those
tweet,
guys are even...
Go to the next tweet by Anna Kasparian. I found it to be like, very like goddamn harsh about like Americans. Even if it's true, I found it a bit being like, okay, easy. So it's like, we're entitled little pricks who hoard the vaccine doses, believe wild conspiracies, waste the vaccine doses, and deny them to countries who desperately want and need them. The behavior of Americans during this pandemic has been so devastatingly embarrassing and shameful. I just thought it was a bit harsh because she kind of groups everyone and anyone in the US together, and then, kind of at the same time blaming the government, but people as well, whereas people all over the world have been acting this way. So I found it to be a little bit harsh, to say the least. Her tweet here. I don't know if you have any.
I agree. People always kind of are very tough on Americans, and I mean, I think Americans are awful, but then again, so are the rest of the people, and they focus, for example, on Germany, UK, and France, and forget about that Europe has a lot of other places with a lot of backward people. So what do you think, for example, let's say Iranians wouldn't be as bad? Probably. I mean, maybe not. I mean, I would say Americans, because it's a young nation, they're particularly idiotic in their actions. But it's just go for the whole humanity. Never discriminate in hate. Just humanity.
I agree with you there.
Never discriminate in hate. All of humanity are equally shit, American or otherwise.
I agree with you there. Now, this next tweet, this is insane. And this, I just put it to point out that Twitter isn't full of people. There's not people there. I swear they're all like fake accounts or I don't know what, like much more than any other social media platform. So she retweeted this. 15 years I was homophobic, this person wrote. People change, and a lot of that growth in my views are thanks to TYT and other progressive channels. So Sam, she retweeted this. Go to the next picture. So the next picture, I went on top of the person's account. They have 3 followers. So I think she just retweeted like a fake account or something, and is like so proud of it. The person has 3 followers.
Is that Rudy? Is that Rudy Giuliani's face?
Yeah. So do you think she saw that and realized, or she just?
I mean, I don't know, but I mean the whole tweet is just.
Man, but then I was reading Anna's like the comment section from her tweet. So
Can you imagine coming out of closet because of TYT?
Man, I hope she realized that was probably a bullshit account. But then I saw all the people.
Was it?
I only say it's bullshit
Definitely.
because if you go to the next picture, the person has 3 followers. That's what I'm basing the fact that it's bullshit. So
he could be a very old guy who came out 15 years.
Listen, that's what I'm basing my evidence on. So don't start accusing me. That's why I made that statement. So maybe we can ask the truth police to see if this is false information or not. No, man. Now listen to my next. Sam, there's no one on Twitter. I was reading the people who responded to her on Twitter. I was looking at people who responded to her Twitter. All the people who either said something good about her or hated, they had just a handful of followers. Some had 50. Man, listen to this. My good friend, he works at Nestle, and they do social media advertising on every single platform except
Twitter.
No, because there's no one there.
I know.
Except the news world. This is the only world where it flourishes.
That is quite funny. As you know, one of my very close family members was in Nestle too. So, kind of is showing our background. But anyways, Twitter is a news thingy though. Like, it's not as,
That's the only place it flourishes.
No, I was just saying I should start tweeting because... Yeah, I was just saying I should start tweeting because apparently if you tweet a couple of times, Anna retweets you. So
yeah, apparently. Okay, so the next tweet is Cenk.
All right,
he took a poll. He took a very representative poll, but I'm glad most of his followers went Biden to withdrawal. So we agree there.
I mean, that was a bullshit thing.
And finally, last but not least.
Oh, do you people who subscribe to me because you agreed with me on this thing? Do you agree with me on this thing? Oh, you agree with me on this thing. Fantastic.
I bet you he brought this poll up in the show. He'll be like, I just polled people on Twitter. 91%. And Sam, last but not least, Anna Kasparian she pinned this tweet. So she just put it on August 24th and she pinned it. Love when people share this pic of me as if I'm ashamed of it. I'm not. So 3 months later, I believe this is the photo for when she flicked off Aaron Mate. And went into that childish thing of, let's wrap this podcast up. It's over. Accusing him based on nothing. And she is for censorship. So YouTube should have taken that video down. That he is, or like someone should have censored it, wherever it is, that he works.
I genuinely think Anna was at least smart enough to leave herself enough sort of maneuver place. Sort of, I think he's paid for Russia. I still can't believe nobody with Cenk, nobody just tells him, what the fuck, man? You just accuse somebody of being paid by some other government. Show us your evidence.
But I told you this before I said, like, what are you going to do? You're going to have to sue the person in the US, right? That's what you can do, right? Like, how would you genuinely counter?
Ryan Grimm, anybody, why doesn't they bring that up? The people who seem to be in the middle of the thing, they're not necessarily one side, or Ken Klippenstein or Jeremy Scaleville, or I don't know, or at least call him out on it, and maybe he has a response. I don't know. Maybe he has a good explanation. Maybe he has some evidence that Aaron Mate paid for the Russians.
Yeah, no. Exactly, but I guess he said much shit about that, Cenk. I believe in freedom.
I believe in freedom of speech, and I think libel and defamation laws are usually harmful. But if you go out of your way to make such a specific statement, I do think you should be held responsible one way or another.
100%. But okay, Sam, so we've reached the end of the second podcast that we filmed today. It was a lot of fun. Got into a lot of random discussions. My thoughts were all over the place.
Sorry if I get angry.
I'm sure I said a lot of bullshit. But people, please like and subscribe. And more importantly, leave your comments, questions, and criticisms below. And we'll make sure to get to them. But yeah, I think that's it. And we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.
Don't have children.